With another interest rate hike under our belt and several more on the way, the likelihood of a recession in 2023 is at an all-time high. If you're worried about how a recession might impact your retirement, I'm going to reveal 7 simple tips that will help set you up for success. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another video from One Up Financial. I am your host, Eric Persogna, CPA and Certified Financial Planner, here to help you increase your income, reduce your taxes, and invest smarter in retirement. To give you an idea of where the current economic landscape is at the moment, right now we have mortgage rates, 30-year mortgage rates, hovering around 7%. The Fed is raising interest rates at the fastest pace in history, and inflation is at a 40-year high. So you shouldn't be surprised when billionaire investors like Jeffrey Gundlach and Stanley Druckenmiller are putting the chances of a recession next year at about 70%. Now, fortunately for them, they're billionaires, right? So an economic downturn is likely to have a very minimal impact on their financial health. Most investors, on the other hand, will likely feel the pain should a recession hit our economy. In fact, a sharp and protracted downturn in the stock market can have a devastating blow to recent retirees given the length of time it takes to recoup those losses. Now remember, if you lose 50% of your money, it's going to take a 100% return just to get back to even.
That doesn't make sense.
And that might be a long time to have to wait, especially if you're in retirement and drawing money from your investments. So if retirement plans are in your near future, or if you've recently retired and are concerned about how a recession may impact your financial future, here are 7 simple tips to help you better manage your finances should things turn from bad to worse in the economy. Number 1 is build a plan that you will follow. This doesn't have to be a 50-page document filled with fancy charts and graphs that you'll likely only look at once with your financial advisor and later throw away in the garbage when you get home. It can be something as simple as just having a plan that is proactive, right? Or simply just being proactive. Should an economic catastrophe be right around the corner, you want to know in advance how you're going to react should you know what hit the fan. At the very least, check to make sure that your investment strategy aligns with your time horizon and your risk tolerance. If savings and investments are funding your lifestyle, then it's not a bad idea to have some kind of exposure to fixed income, bonds, cash, or cash-like investments, especially now, given where interest rates are. And the reason for that is this is going to allow you to pull money from a relatively safe asset class to fund your living expenses, as opposed to being forced to have to sell out of stocks during a bear market.
Like the sound of that.
In addition to reviewing your investments, you might also consider establishing some kind of strategy for Social Security. Those fortunate enough to delay filing for Social Security will obviously have the benefit of larger monthly payments down the road. But some people actually might benefit from filing sooner, collecting that much needed cash flow today, and attaining some semblance of financial peace of mind of knowing that they have cash coming in the door and they don't necessarily have to rely entirely on their investment portfolio to fund their lifestyle, especially if we're in a recession. Lastly, put all of this in writing. Even if you don't have a financial advisor or a financial planner, I'd recommend simply just writing down your investment strategy and writing down your Social Security strategy on a piece of paper. And the reason for that is that it's been proven that the simple act of writing down your goals increases your chance of achieving them by 20 to 40%. That's actually a better return than Warren Buffett has annualized over his lifetime.
Can you do any better on salary?
Number 2, consider part-time work. So to be honest, I hate the word retirement. It brings to mind people laying around on beaches or golfing or sailing across the Pacific. And while all those things are great, at some point that euphoria fades and reality sets in. You eventually start to ask yourself, okay, well, now what am I supposed to do with my time? If you replace the word retirement with making work optional, it reframes the perception of what work can actually be while offering up another arrow in your quiver to fight a recession. So let's talk about that a little further. If your career was spent doing work that you didn't enjoy, well, think about what things you actually do enjoy doing. There are so many opportunities now to make money with part-time gigs, side hustles, whatever you want to call them. I'll give you a quick story. So I took an Uber about 2 months ago and learned after talking with the driver that he had amassed $2 million in his bank account.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
My follow-up question was, okay, why are you still driving Uber with $2 million? And his response was pretty simple, and it was that, one, he just likes driving. I think he said he ran in a cab business at one point. And 2, he likes meeting new people and talking with new people. So I thought that was relatively interesting. Not exactly what I would do with my time in retirement, but hey, everyone is different. Maybe you don't like to drive around in a car and talk to random people from 9 to 5, Monday through Sunday. Maybe you've developed or acquired a unique skill that people or businesses will pay good money for. Or maybe you just like pets and decide to become like a dog walker. Point is, opportunities exist now to earn money in retirement without having to do work that you don't enjoy. And supplemental income can allow you to delay filing for Social Security and come in handy during a recession. Number 3, remain calm. I know this is way easier said than done. It's almost a cliche at this point, but let me explain a little bit further on what I mean by remain calm and some ways you can kind of apply that. We've all heard that phrase from Warren Buffett, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. This makes sense on paper or reading it in like a greeting card, but in reality, it's extremely difficult to follow. And I think the reason is actually twofold. Number 1, there are a few topics in life that tug more on your emotional strings than money. And when fear starts to become a reality, like when you open up your 401k statement and see you've lost 4 years worth of salary in a matter of months, then it's very hard to be greedy when others are fearful and put more money into the stock market. Second, most retirees are in what I call the distribution phase of retirement, meaning they're pulling money out of savings as opposed to putting money into savings. So those people that are still working and contributing to a 401k, actually, if you think about it, want this kind of market that we're currently in. They want a downturn in the S&P 500 because, one, they have plenty of time to recoup those losses because they're still working and retirement is several years away. And 2, they're actually buying in at a lower price every pay period that deductions are coming out and being funded into their 401k. So it's much different from those that are working and contributing to retirement or to their savings. Now, on the other hand, when we talk about those in retirement, they're relying on their savings. They're relying on their nest egg. And when that nest egg starts to crack a little bit as a result of a pending recession, then sound decision making is replaced with a reckless panic towards safety. I've seen it happen time and time again. I can tell you to remain calm amidst market volatility until I'm blue in the face, but it will likely have very little impact on you in the heat of the moment. If you don't have a financial advisor or a financial planner that you work with, find someone trustworthy that has some experience with the financial markets that you can simply call up on the phone and talk to during tough times like we're currently in. Because sometimes all it takes is a 20-minute conversation with a reliable sounding board to vent your frustrations and clear your mind.
No, please don't hang up. Please don't.
Number 4, some tough love here for everyone. You can't time the market, so please don't try. Believe it or not, what's worse than failing to correctly time the market is actually succeeding. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you accurately predict the market bottom and invest in the perfect time, you're rewarded with monetary profits as well as the false sense that you actually know what you're doing. Feeling confident in your ability to correctly predict the future, you continue to attempt to go in and out of the stock market, only to find later that 95% of the traders in the world fail miserably at trying to time the market. And sometimes the best lesson is firsthand experience. Like for me, for example, back when I was in my early 20s, I used to trade call options on bank stocks. Made a little bit of money. I think I was up to maybe $300 when I first started. Thought I was a genius. And later, not only lost all of those profits, but lost the principal as well as future money that I put in trying to time exactly when I thought these bank stocks would go up or down.
That's it, Clark. Show 'em who's boss. It's people like you come here and blow the family nest egg that built this town.
So take it from me and the millions of other traders around the world that you never hear about who've lost money trying to beat the S&P 500, that the odds are stacked against you and the house almost always wins. Number 5, preserve your cash. The Certified Financial Planning Standards Board recommends roughly 3 to 6 months worth of essential living expenses in a savings account. But when we have a recession that may occur within the next year, and especially for those that are nearing or even if you're in retirement, I'd probably boost that reserve amount up to 6 to 12 months worth of expenses. And the reason for that is if we look at data from 1945 all the way to 2020, and we look at recessions during that time frame, the average recession has lasted approximately 10 months. So if we use that figure as a guide, that can kind of help us determine maybe how much we should be sitting in cash for emergencies like a potential economic recession. And with interest rates on the rise, cash is actually not a horrible investment option. Most online FDIC insured banks are paying depositors in money market accounts and high yield savings north of 2.5% on their cash. If you wanted to go a step further and purchase, let's say, a treasury bond, I think the 1-year treasury right now is paying around 4.5%. So the yields are actually pretty attractive at the moment. Now, in a recession, I will say that liquidity is much more important than interest rate or APY on a savings account. You want to make sure you can access your cash quickly and easily. Cash, as they say, is king.
$8.50.
Oh, no.
Number 6, take advantage of tax benefits. So with a slowing economy and declining stock market, it pays to be a glass half full kind of person. And the reason for that is investment losses can actually be utilized to your advantage. I've spoken and written before about tax loss harvesting, and if you're not familiar with that strategy, it simply involves selling an investment in a brokerage account or a taxable account at a loss and reinvesting the proceeds into something comparable. And the benefit there from a tax perspective is that you can deduct up to $3,000 in losses against your ordinary income on your tax return. And if you invest those proceeds into something comparable, you're staying in the market. It's not like you're selling something at a loss just to get the tax deduction and going to cash. You're selling something at a loss, utilizing that as a tax deduction, and investing in something comparable. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. There are certain rules that you want to make sure you follow, specifically the wash sale rule. And in my blog post, I actually have a link that details a little bit more about those rules and what to look out for when implementing your tax loss harvesting strategy. You can also consider converting a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA, otherwise known as a Roth conversion. Now, if your IRA has declined in value like pretty much everything else has in 2022, with maybe the exception of your grocery bill, then converting to a Roth IRA will technically save you money on taxes, even though it's a taxable event. Let me explain, and let's kind of go through a really simple example. So let's say you contribute $6,000 in year one to a traditional IRA. And assuming you're under the income limits and you're able to deduct that, you get a $6,000 tax deduction on your tax return. Let's fast forward to year two, and that $6,000 IRA has declined in value down to $4,000. Well, now you can convert that traditional IRA into a Roth IRA, and even though that's a taxable event, you're converting $4,000 worth of that IRA to a Roth, and you've already received the tax benefit of $6,000 when you made the contribution in year one. So you got the benefit at $6,000, you're paying taxes on the $4,000 amount, so you actually make a little bit of money from a tax perspective on that strategy. This is very common when we see declines in the stock market or bear markets. A lot of times advisors will look to see if it makes sense for investors to convert their traditional IRA to a Roth IRA because of those tax benefits. And even to take that a step further, you can combine the tax loss harvesting strategy and the Roth conversion, so you can effectively get paid by the government to make a $3,000 Roth conversion. If I lost you there, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email and I'll explain further what I mean. Now, I want to clarify something I mentioned earlier, which was remaining calm and not losing your cool and letting emotions get the best of you. Don't confuse that with being inactive and complacent. Recessions breed losses in the market, and losses create opportunities from a tax perspective for those investors willing to look for them.
My concern is, and I've got to check it with my accountant, but that this might bump me up into a higher tax.
Lastly, number 7, pick the low-hanging fruits. So what do I mean by that? No one recession is identical to the next. In the early 2000s, we had the dot-com bubble burst. Later in 2008, 2009, we had the Great Recession with the mortgage crisis. And then most recently, we had the mother of all black swan events, COVID-19. But the one common theme that tends to emerge from all of these economic crises is unlikely investment opportunities that are hiding in plain sight. So let me give you a couple examples. If you look back to 2001, January of 2001, when the internet bubble was bursting, the 2-year treasuries were paying 4.76%. So that means that on an ultimately risk-free asset, you received a return of 4.76% each year. Let's go back to 2008 when the market was crashing down 50% or so. The plain vanilla bond index was yielding around 3. And I think the total return for just traditional intermediate bonds that year was right around 5%. Again, this is when everything else was literally being cut in half. And most recently, if we look back from November 2019 through around April of 2020, right when COVID was starting to emerge, Series I bonds were yielding 2.22% when pretty much everything else, every other type of bond or cash-like investment was paying next to nothing, almost 0%. Now, I get it, hindsight is 2020, and it's not my intention to cherry pick on a few investment themes that worked in prior recessionary periods. That's not what I'm trying to do. What my goal is to make you aware of easy money investment opportunities that are sometimes hard to spot in the moment, just because of whatever else is going on in the market, recessions, a lot of volatility. There's usually a lot of chaos going on, and it's not always easy to find some of these really simple, boring investments that can oftentimes pay a decent amount of interest or give you a decent return on your money. I'll just kind of highlight a couple things right now that I'm looking at the moment. And as of this publication, the 1-year treasury, so government bond 1 year, is yielding, I think it's right around 4.5 to 4.6%. Series I bonds, which I mentioned a little earlier, are yielding 9.6%. Now that rate is set to go down, but still that rate is extremely attractive. And I mentioned earlier about the online FDIC insured banks. Right now they're paying about 2.5 to 3% on their money markets and their high yield savings accounts. Now these aren't exotic investments. These aren't going to double or triple your money over the next 5 to 10 years, but they are relatively risk-free assets that historically haven't paid anything in the way of interest. Now, just given the current environment and the changing economic landscape, these safe conservative asset classes look relatively attractive. Planning for your retirement in the midst of a recession is not for the faint of heart. If you have questions, concerns, or just want to vent about your recent electric bill, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I will respond to you personally. Thanks as always for watching our videos. If you're interested in staying up to date with our market and financial commentary, please subscribe to our blog at oneupfinancial.com/blog or follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.